tons of content was cut from Mortal Kombat 1. You're honestly not gonna believe it because the sheer amount of modes and animations buried in this game is mind-boggling. We're talking tag team mode, Hara-Kiris, unique throw animations, brutalities on the Cameo characters, just to name a few. All of it is there in the game files, but regular players can't access it. As mentioned earlier, it's buried by the game developers. Now thankfully, with the use of mods, it is possible to access these missing features and share them with you all today. A quick shout out to all these data miners and modders on screen for providing us with amazing content that was never meant to be seen. Please take a second to like this video so it gets shared around with more people, because honestly every player deserves to see this stuff. It's really cool and interesting, which might have you wondering why this content got cut in the first place. And the sad answer is time constraints. Yep, the game was too rushed. A simple and depressing answer. But alright, onto the content. Many of you watching already know about tag team mode, and I am gonna talk about that later. However, to begin this video, let's talk about a more recent discovery. Brutalities on cameos. Yep, I'm not talking about the regular cameo throws that every character has. This is completely different, and many of you are seeing it on screen for the first time. This is basically an entirely new mechanic that was completely cut from the game, as in you can brutality the opponent's cameo, not your cameo doing the brutality. The game has that, but there is also a feature to kill the opponent's cameo when you win the match. Many of these animations already exist in the game files, and some of them look almost finished, which really makes me wish that NetherRealm greenlit a few of these and just added them to the game. I understand that maybe not every character was finished yet, but come on, these hidden attacks are so cool and would have added so much more depth to the game. I personally love new attacks more than anything else in fighting games, because back in the day that never happened. The fighting game you played started and ended with the exact same attacks. But now, thanks to the internet, developers can add brand new attacks to the game with a simple update. And I wish they did that for these tag throws and brutality cameos, all that stuff. It would have been so cool to me. But alright, next up let's talk about tag team mode, because that's the big one. Yep, you heard me correctly, tag team mode. You know, that feature that everyone has been asking for since Mortal Kombat 1 got released? Yeah, it technically does exist in the game already. It's just not accessible to normies like you and me. Regular players have no way of using this feature. However, with the right mods, you can access tag team mode. Now, it's not finished by any stretch of the imagination, but still, there's 4 characters that each have their own full health bar, and you can switch them out whenever you want. In other words, it's a functioning tag team mode. It's not as in-depth as MK9, but still, the tag team mode is there. And I have 2 main theories for why this mode exists. Theory number 1, it was actually used to test the cameo system and other stuff like that back in the game's earliest phases, sometimes referred to as alpha testing. Theory number 2, it was actually planned for the game at one point, but NetherRealm canned it because this mode would draw people away from the cameo system. And since they already spent years making the cameo system, they obviously don't want you ignoring it to play a different mode, like tag team. Honestly, either theory makes total sense to me. However, at the end of the day, not including tag team mode was such a wasted opportunity. I mean, at least add it to Towers of Time or an extra game mode like that. Make the tag team feature available in certain modes that don't need it to be balanced properly. Hell, I'd even play Invasions mode if it had tag team features. Give players an option to use it somewhere else, because otherwise it's just a massive waste. Mortal Kombat 1 has tag team to an extent, but we never get to use it. What a wasted opportunity. Real quick, before going any further, I want to tell you all about my comic book, because there's only 6 days left to order, so get your copy today. Click that link down below to learn all about my new comic book, Ace of Spades. It's only $10 and you're gonna love it. Don't worry about the goal. We don't need to reach that. If you order a comic, you get a comic book. I just wanted to dream big. This Indiegogo campaign has variant covers that will never be available again, like this swimsuit cover. Looks really amazing, right? Ace is looking pretty hot. And then cover B has her superhero persona. Yeah, I love this design. Our artist did a fantastic job. This comic book really is amazing, and if you want all 3 covers, you can order the triple pack, which gives you a bonus poster for free, an exclusive poster by the way, that will never be available anywhere else. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. This Indiegogo in general is so awesome. Order yourself a comic book today, you're gonna love it. And don't forget, there's only 8 days left, so you want to order now and tell all of your friends about it who might also want a really cool comic book. Alright, and back to the video. Another really cool concept that got cut was Hara-Kiris, which are basically unique quitality animations for every character, and as you can see on screen, all of them are here. Every single character has a Hara-Kiri in Mortal Kombat 1. Now, some of them are not fully finished, but honestly, most of them are finished. So not adding them to the final game is such a a waste. Sure, some characters like Quan Chi are still looking really goofy, but for a vast 80% of characters, these quitalities look good. Cutting Hara-Kiris from the game is such a waste, because keep in mind, Hara-Kiris have been missing from Mortal Kombat for like a decade now, possibly almost 2 decades at this point, because I am getting old and far too aware of the cruel passage of time. My point is, many players miss Hara-Kiris and would find them super nostalgic, and the fact they're nearly done for every single character just has me wondering, why did nobody finish it? Once again, it's such a waste. I wonder if maybe NetherRealm was saving these for Kombat Pack 3, because Chaos Reigns gave us animalities. So maybe Hara-Kiris were gonna be the big new free feature when Kombat Pack 3 got here? I don't know. Honestly, I'm just trying to find justification for not including these pretty much done features into the game. Every new character in the game would have had their own Hara-Kiri. How cool would that have been? And speaking of unique attacks that every character would have had, remember the boss animations for Invasion mode? Yeah, I sometimes call them boss attacks because the bosses in Invasion have unique attacks sometimes. I'm talking entirely new moves like Reiko spinning his staff around and other stuff like that. Reptile could crawl across the floor back and forth. Many boss invaders in Invasions had unique attacks that only they could use, despite all of them being regular characters that are on the roster. And for me personally, I always thought these abilities would be added for us to use later on, but that never happened. Instead, Mortal Kombat 1 got cut short and these moves are stuck in Invasion mode. So once again, I wonder if they were being saved for Kombat Pack 3, because that would have been a really cool feature. Not only do you get a bunch of new DLC characters, but also the existing characters get a bunch of new moves that were teased in Invasions mode. I think that might have been the plan, but I'm just being hopeful here. And speaking of hopeful, anybody else remember that mysterious extra slot on the character select screen? Because to this day, nobody really knows why it was there. For the first few months, many players thought it would be a secret character or a special DLC, something like that. Maybe a mystery character you could unlock by doing something in the game, and maybe at some point that was NetherRealm's plan at first. I honestly don't have a clue what this mysterious slot was ever meant for. However, it was left there. We know that for a fact, but was it intentional or was it a mistake? Why did Mortal Kombat 1 for many months just have a random mystery character slot? And more importantly, why did NetherRealm refuse to remove it? That's the really interesting part. If it was a mistake, then surely it would be fixed within a week or so. But instead, NetherRealm left it there, taunting us, making us wonder for a long time what that mysterious character slot was. And on the one hand, that's interesting. On the other hand, that's super frustrating because we're never gonna know what that was aside from a big tease. And no matter what the case may be, it's just one more piece of evidence that Mortal Kombat was rushed into an early grave. This game was cancelled and this content was cut. Which means last but certainly not least, we have to talk about Kombat Pack 3. Because it's no secret that NetherRealm was planning an entirely new set of DLC characters, along with a final story mode DLC as well, which helps explain why the Chaos Reigns story ended so abruptly with no real resolution. I mean, for Pete's sake, Havoc just disappears off screen and Noob Saibot is left in cryosleep. That is not an ending, and also Cyrax becomes a member of the Shirai Ryu and Sector is now leading the Cyber Lin Kuei. All of this is clearly leading to a big finale story mode part 3 that we never got because Mortal Kombat 1 was stopped short, which honestly might be the biggest failure of Mortal Kombat 1. The developers thought the game was gonna keep going, which is why Story Mode 2 ends on such a weird note. They were planning to finish everything on Story Mode Part 3, but the game was cut short and now we're left in this weird kind of limbo. I imagine Mortal Kombat 13 will continue with a story similar to what the Kombat Pack 3 story was gonna be about. The Cyber Lin Kuei, Noob Saibot's revenge, possibly Onaga or another big villain of some kind, and hopefully the multiverse stuff is done, or at the very least very minimized in the future stories. But alright, next up let's talk about the characters for Kombat Pack 3, the DLC warriors, because deep in the game files, data miners were able to find folders for several characters, and it's very likely that these empty slots were reserved for Kombat Pack 3. In other words, they were placeholders, and there's even some ghost data in the files too that hints at specific characters like Kotal Khan, Cassie Cage, Kung Jin, and more. Not to mention Hotaru, who's heavily foreshadowed by several arcade endings and also story mode itself. However, none of this ghost data is conclusive, so take it all with a grain of salt. The point is that Kombat Pack 3 was in the making along with another story expansion. When Ed Boon himself said this game would be supported longer than ever, he really did mean that. NetherRealm wanted this game to go on for longer, but everything was cut short by the people above them. In other words, the producers, right? The people who give them funding and say to keep the game going, they said no, Mortal Kombat 1 is done. And something very similar happened with Mortal Kombat Kombat 11. That game was doing great, sold better than any other Mortal Kombat game, but then out of nowhere, the publishers and producers said, nope, we're done, start the next game, NetherRealm. I'm guessing that anytime the money return starts to decline, they say start the next game. However, some say that Mortal Kombat's early death is because Sushi Squad failed so hard, along with Multiverses, and that theory makes the most sense to me as well. But it's worth noting that nobody really knows for sure why Mortal Kombat 1 was cut short. Despite all the memes and outrage about the game online, it did sell pretty well. Yes, it sold less than Mortal Kombat 11, but so did almost every fighting game ever made. Mortal Kombat 11 sold stupidly well. Every fighting game coming out in the future is gonna have a hard time passing it. But alright everyone, there you have it, the cut content from Mortal Kombat 1. Everything I could think of that was interesting enough to talk about. Because of course there's other stuff like the option to play as Pink Floyd with mods. However, I don't think NetherRealm ever intended for us to play as Pink Floyd. It was just a way for developers to test him and balance him before releasing the character. Every DLC character, even non-playable ones in past Mortal Kombat games, are fully playable if you use mods, but that's not because they were meant to be DLC, it's so the developers themselves could test them before releasing them into the game. So yeah, this video was only meant to cover cut content that was originally meant for all of us to use. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like down below, it helps the channel out a ton, and then finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.